think the way you start with any Marvel television property is that we're not, when we start thinking about it, we don't think about them as superhero shows. We think about them as shows about people, and then the Marvel icing that's on top of it is, oh yes, and they happen to have powers. This is a show about two young people who are trying to figure out what's happening in their lives, and we think that speaks very much to, particularly now, the people who are in high school and who are trying to find out what is happening in our world, and what is the world that they're growing into, and what should they be. Then we take that, sort of put it through the Marvel prism, and when you come out the other side, you go, and now what would happen if this one could control the dark and this one could control the light? And that's the best way for us to take a look at it. What makes it inherently different from everything else that we're doing is that when you start and look at the number of heroes that are out there, the greater majority of them are people who have jobs, who have a life, who are adults. And we looked at what we had, and whether it was the shows that we have on Netflix or the shows that we have on ABC, and we decided that, knowing that Spider-Man was going to be returning to a high school world, how could we best get into the young hero business and speak to that audience? And that audience really now, because of social media, really now has a very large voice in what's happening in our world, whether it's the tragedy at Parkland or any of the other things that are happening to kids. It's a hard time right now. And so being able to create characters and tell stories that address that issue, it's something that parents can enjoy, but also kids can enjoy, because they can say, and this is really what happened with Gina, who's our director. The reason why she joined up was because she had two young boys of color who said, why are there no heroes for me to be able to look at and go, that's what I want to be. And Luke Cage is not the appropriate show for those kids. So it was, from that point on, we were absolutely driven to have Gina drive some of the creative direction of the show, and certainly the pilot, because she understood the message of the show.
Now, Jeph mentioned like your kids. Have they watched the show? Like, what do they think of it?
Yeah, I don't know if they were supposed to, but I showed them an early cut. They loved it, and that was important to me, again, because they're one of the reasons why I took the show on in the first place, and to be able to put a black teen boy on screen as a hero and give them the opportunity to look on the screen and see somebody who looks like them, that was a big deal, and I was eager to show them, and thank God they loved it. That would be a little hurtful. They thought it sucked, but no, they loved it.
So what's your approach to the show?
The approach was to create a grounded, real, authentic show within a fantastic world, and make sure that those two things felt married to each other in an organic way, and that's sometimes difficult when you're dealing with effects and stunts, but that's where we started. You're competing as a TV show, you're still competing with features who have all that money to spend on effects, so how can we compete with that? Because it can't be cheesy, there's no excuse, so that was the biggest thing, but I think that we pulled it off. We stayed true to the essence of the characters. I mean, we moved it from New York to New Orleans, but we maintained really the dark elements of the show. I mean, dealing with drug use and things like that is a core of Cloak and Dagger, and so we wanted to stay true to that. We go there, and it's actually the cool thing about Freeform, that we were able to go there and deal with the things we're dealing with, and let the characters curse and be real teenagers.
I honestly couldn't imagine the show in any other city. It's something Jeph and I talked about from day one, about taking it out of New York. I mean, New York is like the safest place in the world with like 100 superheroes, and everyone else kind of gets the short end of the stick. But as we started developing it, New Orleans became really important because, it feels like there's a magic underneath the city, and it feels like it's a city that not only needs heroes, but like constantly is beaten down and rises up again. And it feels oddly like the most European of American cities. So there was such a great magic of history, and as we started digging in, it felt so perfect for Cloak and Dagger.
What can you tell us about Roxanne, their role in...
I think it's funny because the script I wrote 5 years ago, we had mentioned Roxanne. I think, they've obviously played a part in Iron Man and Daredevil, and they've shown up. And it was important to kind of sell a real corporation, not necessarily an evil one, but an amoral one. So, over the course of the first season, in very loose terms, we have Tyrone against the entire New Orleans Police Department and Tandy against the entire corporation of Roxanne. And it's really kind of impressive, particularly when you think about the Parkland kids and what's happening tomorrow, to see that kids are going to save us. I mean, they're the only ones that are going to stand up and speak truth to power. And so Roxanne right now represents a power that needs to be spoken to.
Again, I think there's a misconception as to how we approach our shows. We very often get approached by different networks who say, we would like Marvel on our network. So we spend time talking to them about, okay, what is it? What's your audience? What is it that you're trying to do? What would be the best show for you, without ever talking about what character it's going to be. We had those ongoing conversations with Freeform, and out of that grew the idea, let's talk about Cloak and Dagger. And to be a specific person, Carrie Burke was the champion of this, and who said, let's go and let's do the show.
How will the tone compare to like Runaways or Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.?
It's a little more serious. There's always going to be that moral secret sauce of humor in it. But it is a show that is very urban. It's a show that takes place in New Orleans, which is a city that we've never been to. And so I think that you'll find it to be... the tone is different from Runaways, but you can definitely see that they exist in the same world.
Did you have a lot of freedom since the characters are in New Orleans, they're separate, they're not tied to like the Avengers or anyone else, so were you able to just kind of make your own corner of the Marvel Universe?
Yeah, that's the thought. Let us establish these two characters on their own, and once we do that and people fall in love with them, then we start bringing them into the wider universe. But there are some touches and little Easter eggs and things that real fans will be able to pick up on.
Are there any like Easter eggs or cameos, anything we can look forward to, or are you just going to focus on...
Yes, there are so many, and I can't tell you about any of them.
Well, looking for them.
I'm gonna try to think of the big ones. There's a gigantic one in episode 8. There's one in episode 3. They're all over the place if you look for them, and they'll make a little more sense. There's a few... Our writers did a great job, but there's a few conversations that happen in episode 2 that don't mean anything until episode 7, so when you rewatch, you'll be like, oh, okay, they had a plan. As Jeff rightfully says, the first season is about getting to know these two kids and just making sure that people love them. And I think once Aubrey and Olivia are shown on screen and people check it, we're going to get a lot of calls to play.
The universe keeps pushing us together.
The universe keeps pulling us apart.